Tonight on Bridge City News, an out-of-control grass fire has put a town in Saskatchewan in a local state of emergency. An 11-year-old from a southern Alberta Hutterite colony is recovering in hospital after being shot by a 13-year-old. And Saudi Arabia orders the execution of 37 people today. We will explain why.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. We begin tonight in the town of Biggar, Saskatchewan, where a state of emergency has been declared because of a grass fire. RCMP say the blaze is out of control and residents have been evacuated in the area between Highways 4 and 51. Earlier today, a water bomber was called in to help battle the blaze and to save farm buildings. An emergency shelter was set up at the Biggar Community Hall, but was closed after the wind shifted. Dry conditions and high winds meant the fire grew to roughly 5,000 hectares. Many farmers have donated their machinery to plow fields to starve the fire of fuel from neighboring fields. The Reef for Biggar says fortunately there have been no fatalities or injuries.
Fire started yesterday at 12:40 p.m. just after lunch. We have a volunteer fire department. Jerry Bessie is our fire chief, and there are 22 men and women involved in that volunteer fire department. They have been working tirelessly for, a day and a night now, and we have enlisted the help of, now these are all small towns around. What happens in small town Saskatchewan when there's a catastrophe like this is everybody just pulls together, and that's really what I'm seeing is everybody pulling together. The fire hasn't grown, it's not contained, and it is a concern, but it has shifted directions, and that happened in the night, last night. The smoke all came through town, and then as the wind kind of kept blowing, it dispersed, and there was no smoke in the town of Biggar this morning. The fire is now between 6 and 8 miles south and west of Biggar, and it's moving south and west.
Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe tweeted earlier today asking residents to pay attention to any fire bans. He also thanked the firefighters and emergency personnel for tackling the fires. So far this spring, 37 rural municipalities across southern Saskatchewan have issued fire bans because of the dry conditions. An 11-year-old child is recovering at the Calgary Children's Hospital after being shot in the chest by a 13-year-old. Pincher Creek RCMP say the incident occurred yesterday morning around 11:30. Police say the 13-year-old was playing with a loaded .22 caliber pistol when it went off. There were no adults present when it happened. The investigation into the incident, along with the safety and storage of a firearm, continues. Now, you would not leave a chainsaw lying around for a small child, so why would you leave a loaded firearm? That's what Staff Sergeant Glenn Henry of the Coaldale RCMP said when he spoke earlier today about gun safety.
Anytime we have a tragedy like this, and it's a terrible tragedy, some of the basic safety rules aren't being followed. And those basic safety rules are ensuring that you're never pointing the firearm at somebody and your finger's off the trigger, assuming the gun is loaded. And that's where we want adults who've had the firearm safety course, who have a firearms license, to always be present with their firearms and not leave these firearms with children who don't have this knowledge.
The Red Cliff RCMP phone number has been spoofed. Police say residents in and around Medicine Hat have been receiving prank calls from the phone number 403-548-2222, which is the hijacked police phone number. The RCMP have been in touch with TELUS who have advised customers that they should report the occurrence to 611. This way, TELUS can attempt to track down where the calls are coming from. The situation is still being investigated. Medicine Hat is losing its indoor skate park. The Summit, which opened 4 years ago, will be closed down permanently at the end of the month. Summit President John Swanson says the reason for the closure is an increase in expenses and the revenue did not increase. He says financially, the 5,500 square foot space became too difficult to manage. This is the second skate park that closed down, with Central closing before the Summit existed. Swanson says unfortunately for local skaters, they will be without a place to do their thing during the colder winter months. One person was killed and another was airlifted by Stars Air Ambulance following a single vehicle rollover near High River today. RCMP say the accident occurred on Highway 23 about 10 kilometers east of Highway 2. Police say a man was pronounced dead at the scene and his female passenger is in hospital with serious life-threatening injuries. Premier Designate Jason Kenney announced 2 will be part of his senior staff, and 2 are from the city of Lethbridge. Jamie Huckabee will be Kenney's chief of staff. He was born and raised in our city and has considerable public and private sector experience. Kenny's head of transition, David Legg, also grew up in Lethbridge, receiving an undergraduate degree from the University of Lethbridge, a law degree from Oxford University, and a PhD from Yale. Other members of Kenny's administrative team include Katie Merrifield, who will be the Executive Director of Communication and Planning. Howard Anglin will be Kenny's Principal Secretary, and Christine Myatt will be his Press Secretary. With the provincial election now in our rearview mirrors, campaign signs have disappeared from people's lawns but are reappearing elsewhere. Photos surfaced on social media of campaign signs that were dumped in piles in rural areas. Lethbridge West MLA Shannon Phillips, whose signs were targeted, was quick to point fingers at Conservative supporters in a recent Facebook post. She accused them of hitting a new low by stealing signs from private property and dumping them outside of the city. The signs are recyclable, but may not be accepted at all recycling stations. Spring is in the air, and that means gravel, rocks, and debris are on the streets left over from the winter. The City of Lethbridge will kick off its annual street sweeping tomorrow. The city says when you see signs posted, you either move your vehicle or you could end up paying a fine.
So there's one ticket that's issued, and it's a $30 ticket that reduces to $15 if paid within 7 days. And the ticket is for parking in an area where there's a temporary parking ban. And that's what the street sweeping signs are all about. They create a temporary parking ban in those locations. So the commissioner, the parking control commissioner, will follow behind the street sweepers, not in front. So the individuals who receive tickets are those that the vehicle was there and the sweeper had to go around. Big thing I'd like to stress is pay attention to the signs. The signs will be out for sure.
We are going to start in North Lethbridge, then head down to South Lethbridge, and finally finish off in West Lethbridge. They can expect the whole program, weather depending, to take about 2 months. We plan to end up done in about the end of June.
The city spends roughly $1.2 million a year on street sweeping, but they say there's been a huge reduction in the number of tickets they've issued over the past couple of years as compliance has increased. Parks Canada says the recovery of the 3 world-class climbers in Banff National Park involved a helicopter, 28 people, and a search dog. American Jess Ross Kelly, Austrians David Lama, and Hans-Jörg Auer disappeared last week while attempting to descend the east face of House Peak in the Icefields Parkway. Officials say the men summited the 2,300-meter mountain, but an avalanche hit where the climbers were making their 1,000-meter descent. Their bodies were found at the bottom of the mountain's east face on Sunday. Construction on a new medical super lab in Edmonton has been delayed. A spokesperson with Alberta Infrastructure says the pause is intended to minimize costs incurred before the new UCP government has an opportunity to conduct a review. The $590 million lab at the University of Alberta South Campus was announced by the NDP government in 2016. Former Health Minister Sarah Hoffman noted last month that the site preparation was already underway. Premier-designate Jason Kenney called the project unnecessary and promised to scrap it if he was elected. Residents of Gatineau, Quebec want the province to be more flexible with its proposal to compensate homeowners hit by the second devastating flood in as many years.
I prefer to get my money right now and get away. Why pay twice? Why pay 100 grand once and 200 grand the second time? And 2 years ago was 250 grand plus 25 grand to leave, to destroy the house. So why, now it's going worse, and they're telling us we're going to be always like this. So why going that way? Just pay us right now, we're going to leave. But it's not what they're expecting. I called this morning for asking that. I say, okay. I opened my file this morning and I say, I don't want you guys to repair I don't want you guys to repair my place. I just want to leave. And it's not working that way. They don't want.
We've announced a couple of weeks ago a new compensation plan. This plan has a cumulative maximum of $100,000 starting this year. So it means if people ask for some money in the next 3, 5, 10 years, there'll be a cumulative amount of $100,000. When the cumulative amount will be reached, then we'll offer a maximum of $200,000 to move to another house.
As Sri Lanka's leaders deal with the implications of an apparent militant attack and massive intelligence failure, security was heightened today for a national day of mourning. A top Sri Lankan official called the Easter attack on churches and hotels retaliation for the shooting massacre by white supremacists at 2 New Zealand mosques last month. The death toll from the bomb attacks in Sri Lanka now stands at 321, with 500 others wounded. Saudi Arabia beheaded 37 Saudi citizens today in a mass execution for alleged terrorism-related crimes. It marked the largest number of executions in a single day in Saudi Arabia since January of 2016, when the kingdom executed 47 people. The executions also come days on the heels of the Easter Day attacks that killed over 300 people in Sri Lanka and were claimed by the Islamic State group. Saudi Arabia's Interior Ministry says today's executions were carried out in accordance with Islamic law. The government defended the executions as a powerful tool for deterrence. The Stanley Cup playoffs continue today with a big Game 7 for the Toronto Maple Leafs as they're in Boston taking on the Bruins. Another Game 7 has San Jose Sharks playing the Las Vegas Golden Knights. As for the Calgary Flames, the team feels burned after being ousted in just 5 games in the first round by the Colorado Avalanche.
To have the type of regular season that we had, second overall in the league, 107 points, 50 wins, and for it to end as quickly as it does, it seems like you wasted a lot of things, and there was a lot of irrelevance of the regular season. But that's part of becoming a good team, is you raise your own expectations, and that's part of the growth of becoming a good team.
We'd want some do-overs there, mulligans if we could, but you can't. And if we handle those situations different, it's a different series, and we're probably still playing, right? It's no question. The one, Game 2, they get the goaltender outscore 6-on-5, and then we have a power play in overtime, I believe, in Game 2. And then Game 4, I thought we played real well. We were up 2 with 10 minutes to go. So and still, there's some things you want to do better throughout the game. They were really good in Game 4, I thought too. And you make one more key play here or there, it's the difference, right? If we can get that 2-0 lead into a 3-0 lead, is something that we were able to do in the regular season, was extend leads, but we weren't able to do that in the playoffs.
We have a really good group in there. Sucks to see some of the guys that might not be here next year, because we did have a really good group in our locker room, and a lot of tight relationships. Great teammates, great friends, and you hate to see it end like that. But hopefully, like we said, I think this is something that we can learn from.
Hopefully next season, both the Flames and Oilers can make the playoffs and meet in the postseason for another old-fashioned Battle of Alberta. Another windy day in Lethbridge, but lots of sunshine. Some showers, however, on the way. Complete weather details are on deck. Partly cloudy and windy again today. Tonight, a chance of showers developing with a low near 4 degrees. Tomorrow, a chance of thunder showers developing and a high near 14. Cooling off slightly on Thursday under a mainly sunny sky and a high of 12. A low pressure system returns on Friday, bringing rain and a high near 12 again. A chance of rain mixed with snow on Saturday with a high of only 2 degrees. Sunday, more rain developing and a high near 8. Monday, a mixture of sun and cloud and a high near 8 once again. Looking at the almanac, the average high for this time of year is 15 and an average low of +1. The highest temperature in the state was recorded in 1962 at 25 degrees, and the record low was -18 in 1967. Sunrise was at 6:24, sunset at 8:35. Let's see how tomorrow's shaping up across the country now. Victoria will be mainly cloudy and a high of 14. Pretty much the same picture for Vancouver. A chance of showers and 9 for Calgary on Wednesday. Mostly cloudy and 8 degrees for Edmonton. Sunny and 15 for Regina tomorrow. Just a few clouds and 15 as well for Saskatoon. A good chance of rain developing and a high of 19 for Winnipeg tomorrow. Clearing and 15 degrees in Toronto. Periods of rain and 10 for Ottawa tomorrow. Montreal will have drizzle and 8 degrees. In the Maritimes, Fredericton, New Brunswick will have showers and 5. Rain and 12 for Halifax, Nova Scotia. Charlottetown, PEI will have periods of drizzle and 5. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, expect freezing rain and a high near +1 for tomorrow. Many canola farmers in Saskatchewan say they'll be sticking to their seeding plans despite the ongoing suspension of canola sales to China. Todd Lewis with the Agricultural Producers Association of Saskatchewan says he hopes the trade barriers will be fixed soon. He says nearly any big crop has trade barriers to deal with, including pulses to India, durum wheat to Italy, or canola to China. He also says farmers are in the middle of their crop rotation, and it is wise to stick to it rather than risk disease pressures. Bank of Canada Governor Stephen Poloz is widely expected to put rates on a long pause tomorrow as our country's economy has slowed down. All 24 analysts surveyed by Bloomberg see policymakers leaving the benchmark overnight rate at 1.75%. It would mark the 4th straight hold by the Ottawa-based central bank. Canada's economy stalled for the final quarter of last year as oil prices tumbled and households reined in spending. Data for the early months of 2019 show that our economy will be sluggish at best. Twitter says earnings in the first quarter more than tripled on strong ad demand while user numbers posted healthy growth. The economy says the number of daily users rose 11% to 134 million for the first quarter of 2019. It posted a profit of $190.8 million US and says adjusted earnings were up 10% to $66.4 million or 9 cents a share. That is below the 15 cents forecasted by analysts. The revenue did, however, beat expectations of $786.9 million, amid what Twitter says was strong growth in advertising demand. Auto safety regulators in the United States have expanded their investigation into malfunctioning airbag controls to include 12.3 million vehicles because the bags may not inflate in the crash. The probe involves parts made by ZFTRW that were installed in Toyota, Honda, Kia, Hyundai, Mitsubishi, and Fiat Chrysler vehicles made from 2010 to 2019. As many as 8 deaths may be linked to the problem. There are a lot of scams out there right now. Fraudsters are reaching out via text messages, phone calls, and even emails. There are CRA scams, home improvement scams, even romance scams. Ron Riemann is with the Better Business Bureau here in Southern Alberta, and he explains the best way to protect yourself from a scammer.
You know, it sounds so cliche, but follow your gut. Your gut will always tell you if this is too good to be true, and that's the old adage. And we always have to remember that we always have the power to either hang up the phone, slam the door, or put that email link in the recycle bin.
Catch the full interview with Mr. Riemann discussing in detail some of the biggest scams you need to watch out for. That's coming up after business news. Now, here's a look at today's markets. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, an 11-year-old child is recovering at the Calgary Children's Hospital after being shot in the chest by a 13-year-old. Pincher Creek RCMP say the incident occurred yesterday morning around 11:30. Police say the 13-year-old boy was playing with a loaded .22 caliber pistol when it went off. There were no adults present when it happened. The investigation into the incident, along with the safety and storage of the firearm, continues. There are many scams out there right now, everything from a romance scam to a CRA scam. Up next, I chat with Ron Riemann from the Better Business Bureau, who talks about how you can best protect yourself from any scam. That interview is coming up. But first, here's a look what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News Community Calendar. Do you enjoy working with kids? The Lethbridge Soccer Association is looking for coaches for the outdoor soccer season. Volunteers will be coaching youth ages 4 to 19 and will be able to pick from the available teams. No experience is necessary, but a criminal records check is required. All equipment, uniforms, schedules, and team lists are provided. For more information about this fun opportunity, call Michaela at 403-320-5425. The Watch is looking for volunteers to act as additional eyes and ears for the Lethbridge Police Service. Volunteers will provide an extra layer of safety, promote the city of Lethbridge, build relationships with businesses, and some administrative duties. Training for the Watch program will be ongoing, and volunteers will be on foot patrol working in groups. For more information and to sign up, call Sergeant Mike Williamson at 403-330-5204. Easy Does It is an Al-Anon support group for adult children of alcoholics. Get an opportunity to share about your experiences with those who understand and learn healthy coping skills for your relationships. This group meets Thursdays at 7 p.m. at the Church of the Good Shepherd. For details, call Judy at 403-329-0661. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.
The Better Business Bureau of Canada has come out with a list of the top 10 fraudulent scams that are ripping Canadians off on a large scale. Joining me now to talk about it is Ron Riemann, an accredited business coach with the Lethbridge branch of the Better Business Bureau. Welcome back to BCN, Ron.
Good to be here, Hal. Thank you.
Last year, Canadians lost over $121 million to scammers.
Amazing.
That's double the amount from 2015.
Yes.
So why is this happening? What's going on?
I don't know why it's happening. I think more or less the marketers, or rather the fraudsters and the scammers, are more slick. They're more intelligent for the wrong reasons, and we seem to fall for the traps that these marketers seem to ploy against us.
Now, apparently, only 5% of people who've been scammed report the crime. Why is the number so low?
I guess one of the reasons, the biggest reasons why that happens, Hal, is because there's a bit of a shame in what's happening, especially for the elderly people who lose a lot of their life savings. How do you explain that to their sons and daughters and their grandchildren, for that matter? So they try and keep it low key, but of course what happens is that it does finally catch up to the family because money's not there and they have to pay the bill still, and so it's the shame. It's the shame that really kind of makes it very, very low key for them.
So who are the other people who are most vulnerable? Seniors, would maybe students, or maybe even new immigrants to our country?
Immigrants as well as teenagers. Teenagers, of course, when they go out into the work field and they get a new job and they're trying to create a new life for themselves professionally and personally. And they find that they want to, not all of them, but some of them want to get quick, rich scheme, when they want to get money very fast. Mm-hmm. And of course they'll listen to a pitch if it sounds too good. Even if it's too good to be true, they'll fall for it. And they're an age bracket that's very vulnerable right now too.
So Ron, bottom line, what should somebody do if they've been scammed? What's the first step? Maybe take us on a variety of steps.
There are a number of steps that you can possibly do if it does happen to you. If you feel like you've been taken, there are a number of things you should do first. First, if it's a local issue, if it's somebody physically that came to your house or phoned you, if you know that person or that business that possibly came to your door or telephoned you, get the local police involved. They may be able to help. Unfortunately, if it's out of province, out of country, or out of North America for that reason, they can help. We can help. The Better Business Bureau, Anti-Fraud Center, of course, can help as well. And also, we encourage them to talk about it, because we need to get this information out to the public. We need to, like you and I talking about this right now, we need to let people know about what's going on. And we put out these press releases once a week if anything is fraudulently going on into our community. So we encourage people, as much as they don't want to do this because they feel shamed, we invite them to talk to us, because it's marketers are so slick, like I said earlier. Another good reason is to make sure that don't feel shame, because they are good at what they do. They know what to say. They have their sheets right in front of them. They know what to say next when they get a response from yourself.
Except when it comes to the CRA scam, they say the cops are going to come arrest you at your door.
That's right.
I've received that call, you've received the call, and but hey, we can make this all go away if you pay with iTunes gift cards. Like, what? Come on.
I know, iTunes gift cards, right? And we can talk a little bit about those iTunes gift cards and why they're so popular now. But before we get to that, the CRA, of course, they are a government agency. So when you get a phone call from somebody apparently from the CRA, you would think they would talk more professional about this. But we talked off camera about sometimes these phone callers from the CRA would talk very laid back or very unprofessional. And that should be a red flag. But unfortunately, some people get caught up on the scare tactics that they throw to the listener, to the point where it's like they're terrified, because most of, not all the time, these listeners, these consumers have done nothing wrong in terms of breaking the law or cheated on their taxes, for that matter. So they automatically, they pull out their wallet, because of course the cops are just around the corner, as they like to call it, cops. And of course that's not true. And one big tip to always realize with the CRA, they will not phone you unless you specifically ask in your tax returns with your accountant that you want to get a phone call. They will always email you, or they will provide a snail mail response all the time.
One of the top scams involves romance? Why don't you tell me a bit about that?
Romance is one of those trickier things that most of it is done online. the activity that is. The scammers and the fraudsters will put on a painted picture of not themselves, but a picture of someone who they're not, and of course a name and how old they are and what they actually do. It's all make-believe in terms of trying to put on this best impression for this would-be person that you want to bilk as many thousands of dollars as you possibly can. And what happens is that some people will fall for it, and the scammer is trying to build that trust into that listener, and they do that over a long period of time, perhaps 6 to 8 weeks. And when it gets to the point where they know they can trust that person, then they'll bring in the monetary discussion. And just a few years ago, there was an incident in Alberta, northern Alberta. I believe Camrose or Wetaskiwin, and the poor lady was billed over $80,000.
Wow.
And one piece of advice: if it happens to somebody who wants to meet this person, do it in a public place. If they are who they think they are and they're the real deal, have them meet at a coffee shop or meet at a restaurant. You know, so just to make sure that they
take the necessary precautions, right?
Exactly.
Ron, it sounds like with some of these scams, we really have to check our emotions at the door, don't we?
We sure do. A lot of times we have to kind of look at the big picture and say, is this, you know, I tell consumers who phone me over the phone and I say, you know, it sounds so cliche, but follow your gut. Your gut will always tell you if this is too good to be true, and that's the old adage. And we always have to remember that we always have the power to either hang up the phone, slam the door, or put that email link in the recycle bin. And just always remember that reputable companies, especially if they come to your door, they'll give you time to think about a purchase if you are interested, instead of the very heavy sales tactic part of it. Reputable companies will phone you the next day and say, hey, listen, can I call you and say, maybe get your answer, let you sleep on it, and that sort of thing. So to summarize again, you've got the power. Hang up the phone if you have to.
How about some of the online purchasing scams that are out there right now? Let's talk a bit about those.
The biggest one right now is skin creams. We get a ton of ladies, at least I have, my office has been phoning my office in terms of skin cream products. And they get it through magazines or television infomercials, and whereas you get this free product, or you get a product that practically it's next to nothing, and it comes to your door, and you think that, well, I've just got this free product, so I'm done with it, and man, it's not too bad, but I don't want to buy it anymore. But what happens is that you don't read the fine print, and they'll start shipping out some more of that skin cream, unaware that they're also dinging your credit card at the same time. And the fine print, the terms and conditions are never mentioned, although, you know, when you look at those small wordings on the bottom of the screen, it just says right there, of course, who can read it. But a lot of people just are unaware that, oh, well, I guess I got more free cream. This is just wonderful until they get their bank statement.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
So what happens is they phone the credit card company, and of course they're going to say, well, maybe not. You may have to phone the company. You phone the company. Of course, they're not from Canada. They're from the United States. And if you're lucky enough to get them on the phone, and if you're lucky enough to have them cancel your subscription, which is a great thing, but sometimes it doesn't happen that way.
How about just cancel the credit card?
Cancel the credit card is probably the fastest thing to do right now.
How about employment scams? Some of those are floating out there too, right?
Yeah, and what happens is that they're through a magazine or an internet page. On the side of the page, it'll say, for $100,000 we can make you manager, and like this apply now. You can become a manager of so and so. You can make this much working with us. And what happens is that these companies here, they won't do any sort of check on you. They won't do any sort of background check. They'll just offer you the job, but they also want a processing fee before they hire you. And of course, that's a red flag right in itself right there.
Isn't there also the fear of identity theft too? You give them all your personal information?
Another big thing right there too.
Right?
Yeah, you pass on a lot of the personal information, and of course the bottom line is that if they're not going to get money from you, at least they want to get your personal information from you.
And we've all heard the term phishing scams.
Yes.
And we're not talking about going for trout or salmon.
No.
So what exactly is a phishing scam?
A phishing
Explain to
scam
our
is
viewers.
a phishing scam basically is using a very popular logo of perhaps any company in North America, plastering it on an email, plastering on a snail mail, any sort of correspondence. And basically what they want is information from you, because let's say, for example, it's a bank, one of the national banks. The national bank could probably say that we've noticed there's unscrupulous behavior going on right now. We'd like to make sure that it's coming from your account number. We want to verify it's true or not. Can we make sure that it is true by giving us a call or hit the link, and we'll be able to verify that it's yourself. And of course, that's just one step closer of getting into your personal information. That's all it is.
Now, advance fee loans came in at number 7 on your top 10
Yes.
list. What are they all about?
Well, you know that most advance fee lenders are licensed here in the province of Alberta, but sometimes you'll get those phone calls, or sometimes you'll get those emails where they can perhaps offer you $15,000, $20,000, $30,000, whatever amount of money, and on top, they'll say, give us the $500 for a processing fee, and we'll give you $15,000, $20,000 as money for whatever you want to do with. And of course, that's another example of getting more of your personal information. We know that it's illegal for anybody to ask for money up front before you get your money yourself from a loan company. So be aware of that, and always go to the reputable lenders here in this province here, because they do a good job of what they're doing, and they're licensed. The ones that are very aggressive over the telephone, they're only in it for one reason, and we know that it's just for your money.
Absolutely. How about tech support scam? I hear that's making the rounds as well. People are intimidated by computers sometimes. They're having issues. They call up. It's like, if you're having problems with your computer, call this number. Let's talk a bit about that one.
It's funny because Microsoft, because being the biggest company in the world, one of the biggest companies in the world, you think they have time to phone me or you any time of the day to say that you've got problems with your computer? Of course not. They don't. They don't have time at all. And the one question you have to ask yourself is, when someone does phone you and say, well, how do you know my computer is even broken, for that matter? And what happens is, it's a little bit of a scare tactic too, is because they'll throw in, if your computer doesn't have the proper virus software, then hackers will get in, not knowing, announced to them, that they're actually talking to a hacker themselves here. So what happens is they try and get the computer person to type in some configuration on the computer, and basically what happens is they want to get your IP address. And what they want to do is, either they want to put malware, which is software, and to kind of hijack your computer, and they want to obtain as much information as they can. They want to take control of your computer. And we always say, you know what? If you do have computer problems, and there are companies out there that call themselves Microsoft approved, but they're not. I always say to the consumers that phone my office, it says, take it to a local guy in town here, and he'll be able to fix it for you. It's going to cost you a little bit more, but you know you're going to have it done right. It's here local, and of course it's under warranty, and you'll be able to have peace of mind.
How about some of these fly-by-night contractors that come knocking on your door and they offer up a little bit of home improvement? But a lot of that can be a scam as well.
Lots of times, and using the pavement is a good example of that right now. As we approach warmer weather right now, and more spring renovations are being tackled. Driveways are a big example of that right now. You get an example of somebody with an unmarked van who's down the street putting asphalt down on a driveway, and they'll come to your door and say, hey, listen, we've just finished a job down the street, and we wanted to know whether you want to have your driveway done. And be careful of that sort of thing, you know, because of the fact that you don't know who these people are, you don't know what grade of asphalt it is, for that matter, you don't know how much they're going to charge. So stay away from that as much as you possibly can. And with Home contractors, again, they use unmarked vans and they don't have an office. They use a laptop as their office. And a lot of times, too, is they're fly-by-nights, as you said, because they're in so quickly and out so quickly, and they want to get as much money as they possibly can. And please don't give them any deposit until you sign something on paper.
Yeah, I was going to ask, let's say, at the average concrete driveway with the rebar is around $10,000. They say, I want $7,000 right up front before we even start.
I always tell the
You know?
consumers the 3-3-3 rule, 3 before, 3 during, and 3 after. It provides that incentive for that contractor to make sure that they get the job done.
Now, what about the bank investigator scam? That's interesting.
That's very slick. That's a very slick one. It involves more than one person.
Okay.
And again, it goes back to the banking thing where somebody from the bank supposedly phones you up and says, well, we have some illegal activity going on with your account, and we want to direct you to your bank investigator. And what happens is that they're going to give you the legitimate number of the bank investigator, the legitimate number, but it gets rerouted because what happens is that they buy that number, and the next thing you know, before they hang up, the other person comes onto the line and says, hi, I'm the bank investigator. I'm here to take care of the situation that you've spoken with that person earlier. And it's a two-person job, basically. An employee from the bank and then somebody who represents themselves as a bank investigator. It's very slick. And the scammers do a lot of practicing to get this done, and they make it look really legit. They do it in the early morning hours before the banks are even open. That's how they do it.
And when we're just waking up sometimes early in the
I
morning,
know,
too.
and a lot of times we don't have our ball bearings straight, you know, and all of a sudden you just say yes to everything.
Ron, how often should we change our online passwords, and what kind of passwords should we avoid? Like maybe using our birthdays, perhaps?
That's a good thing too, but make sure you add an asterisk or a comma or a punctuation mark, or to kind of mix it up with the uppercase or lowercase a letter. Please do it every 90 days. We notice that some people who buy a laptop, say an iPad or a desktop, they'll just kind of like overshadow the password, and they'll just leave it open. And some people will actually use the password as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or admin, or even the word password. And some of these scammers are pretty good at figuring out, trying to go into the minds of people of passwords. So to summarize your question, every 90 days is a good time to change your password.
Now, you also have a scam tracker on the Better Business Bureau website.
Yes.
Tell me more about that.
On our website, www.bbb.org/Calgary, we have information for people who feel that they've been scammed or frauded or have suspicious activity happening with them. We encourage them to leave information about that so people like you and I can look at that information for our own purposes.
Ron Riemann, accredited business coach with the Lethbridge branch of the Better Business Bureau. Thanks a lot for joining me in studio
Al, it's
today.
a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Only 6% of workers continue to work full-time after the age of 65, and the average retirement age, get this, in Canada is 62. With people living longer, that means a lot of free time on our hands. But what's the best way to use that time? Joining me now to discuss this is retired Lethbridge Pastor Abe Block. Welcome back to Bridge City News, Pastor Abe.
Good to be here, Hal. It's always good to be here.
So Abe, it seems like a lot of times when people retire, they may be slowing down a little bit too much, you know, and when they feel like they don't have a purpose, they get a little grumpy, and some people even die prematurely. What does the Bible have to say about retirement?
Well, actually, the Bible doesn't say very much about retirement. Matter of fact, I used to think there was no scripture in the Bible that used the word retirement. But I did find one, and I think it's maybe the only one.
Okay.
So I'll read it to you. It's taken out of Numbers, and it's chapter 8, and it's verse 23. It says, "The Lord said to Moses, this applies to the Levites. Men 25 years old or more shall come to take part in the work at the tent of meeting. But at the age of 50, they must retire from their regular service and work no longer." There you got it.
Amen.
Retirement is in the Bible.
That's right, and work
However,
no longer. Oh, however?
If we talk about retirement, let's go back to creation. What did God say to Adam and Eve? Here it is.
Go
Here's
forth and
the
multiply?
garden.
Oh.
Work it.
Right.
Work it. Take care of it. And there's joy in that. Now I want to read another scripture taken out of Ecclesiastes, chapter 2, verse 24. A man can do nothing better than to eat and drink and find satisfaction in his work. I did a study on that, and I discovered that close to 80% of Canadians do not like the job they're in.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, what's going on here? We should be enjoying work, because Ecclesiastes goes on to say in chapter 3, verse 22, I saw that there is nothing better for a man than to enjoy his work. There you go. That's also Bible.
So after you've done that work then, Pastor Abe, should you really focus on God and say, can you perhaps give me another purpose in life? Maybe take me down another direction, whether it's maybe helping other seniors, tending to a garden, going golfing perhaps, traveling the world, hitting all the best golf courses? What are your thoughts?
My big answer to that is a big yes. I think we should be talking to God about what to do. I recall I started off as a teacher back in Ontario, and I recall having some buddies that were in teaching and they became principals, but they didn't have a hobby or a focus outside of teaching. And unfortunately, I think for us men, often our job is who we are. But God says, no, you are who you are because I created you. It's not your job. But we make the job. And so when we retire, there's that word again, we don't know what to do because we haven't prepared us inwardly, asking God, okay, what now? And I think, Hal, there are so many opportunities out there for people to find something to do without getting paid.
What's interesting, too, is the fact that some people retire, as we said, at the age of 62 or 65, but then they're going to live another 30 years.
Yes.
So a third of their life, you know, that's a long time of doing what? Doing nothing? How about going on missions trips? How about being involved and volunteering in your community, right?
How about looking around in the community? For example, right
See what
here,
the need is, right?
Exactly. Right here in Lethbridge, we have thrift stores, we have Streets Alive, we have all kinds of places where people can volunteer and they can have a focus and they can get up in the morning feeling good about themselves because I'm going to be going to help somebody else and I don't need to worry about the finances. Now, it is different if people have come through some hard times and get to retirement age but don't have the finances to go and volunteer. Some of them may have to work, and I say, you know, that's fine. But for those of us, and again, there's another point in that, and I think for those of us like me who can manage without the job, why not volunteer and let those people that need the job take it?
Some people like to retire a little bit earlier because maybe they have health problems. Maybe their father passed away from heart disease at the age of 55, 56. So they may consider retiring a little bit early, saying, I don't want to work till 55, 56, and I'm going to die. I'm not going to get a chance to enjoy my retirement. What are your thoughts there?
I think that's fine too. But have a focus in life. I think that's the key. Have a purpose and have a focus. A lot of people, I think, once they retire, get up, okay, what am I going to do today? I have no idea, and therefore I do nothing. Now, at a certain age, when we become handicapped or stuff like that, there is a place for that. And I'm grateful for the places that we have in our government for people like that to go to. But I know I have a lot of friends that go south for 6 months of the year. That's fine. I'm not going to argue with them. I couldn't do it. At this stage, I still couldn't do it. Maybe it's because I'm quite involved and I'm enjoying what I'm doing. Have a good friend in the church that we attend. Chatted with him one day, and he just retired a little bit ago, and he said, Abe, most wonderful time of my year. These are the things that I do. And I'm not the kind of guy that wants to go south for 6 months regardless. Right. That's good. Everybody has to find their own place, I think.
I have an uncle who retired at the age of 65 as a millwright.
Okay.
Lives in Alberta here, central Alberta, and he got bored after the first year, so he went back to his job to work part-time.
Yes.
And he's so much happier now.
Yes. And I think that's a wonderful idea. I do part-time driving a courtesy van for Honda, just as a spare. They call me if somebody's sick or is on holidays or something. And there's a fella in there who started off as a teacher, retired at his right age, didn't want to sit around, went to Honda, became a salesman. So he was a salesman for a while. Then he retired from that. Then he said, I still can't do it. Came back to Honda and is a courtesy driver. I think that's great. You know, find a place where you're not just sitting at home. Mind you, a lot of wives want their husbands. They don't know what to do with them when they retire.
They want them out of the house.
They want them out of the house.
Does that also
Absolutely.
give you value and purpose as well when you know you're contributing back to the community, whether it's working as a driver, a millwright, or maybe reading to seniors or helping seniors in need?
I think absolutely. When I get up in the morning and I already know these are some things that I can do today to volunteer or to help somebody else. For example, for myself, we live in a condo in a section, ground level condos. I have been involved in the board in that. That's all voluntary for years and years and years already, and I love it. You go around and you help people. You fix stuff for them, and you make sure that everything is working properly. Those are the kind of things I think a lot of people can do.
Let's talk about bridging the gap now, Pastor Ray, between the younger generation and the older generation. Do you think maybe some of the younger people should really reach out to seniors to teach them more about technology, the internet, computers, maybe help bridge that gap a little bit, and at the same time maybe form a special bond? How important is that?
I think maybe the initiative should come from us older generation rather than from the younger ones. For example, I'm computer illiterate. I have a computer, I do certain things on it. When I got a problem, I got grandchildren that can just pop over, and we spend some special time together. Also, I volunteer, my wife and I volunteer at a thrift store here in town. And I have a grandson who's good with electronics, and I do the electronics at the thrift store. So I asked the manager, I said, this guy wants to come and help me. I spend time with my grandson, and when he finally got a job at 15, in this area, his younger brother came and said, Grandpa, can I come and work in there? What a great opportunity, you know, to work together with your grandkids in something they enjoy, in something that you're doing, relationships. And I think that's a great idea to do that.
So if you're working with your grandchildren, they're teaching you a little more about computers and technology, what can you offer them and teach them along the way?
Well, I think that we can teach them issues of life. We can teach them patience. We can teach them understanding.
Kindness.
We can teach them the kind of things they're not going to get at school, et cetera, et cetera. In the main, they're not going to get them there. Those are the kind of things that we can teach. I remember when I lost my first wife, and we lived, when she was very sick, we lived with my daughter for a while. And during that time, she was homeschooling. Well, I'm a teacher by profession, way back when. I got involved in some of the teaching in the home whenever I was there. Great opportunities. And I think grandparents, for sure, can be involved in the lives of their grandkids in any way that they want. Have a good friend that loved fiddling with cars. He had a grandson who did not have a dad. Wow, what an opportunity to get him over and work together rebuilding a car. Super opportunities.
Amazing way to connect, isn't it?
Amazing way to connect.
How about a short-term missions trip for maybe a senior who's never seen much of the world, a chance to really give back to the kingdom of God and experience new cultures, you know, new languages, new place in the world?
Have friends who do just that. Matter of fact, they work part of the year to make enough money to take 4 mission trips a year.
Wow.
4. They have seen half the world in their experience, and at the same time, helping missionaries, helping organizations, doing whatever they can do. Great opportunity. I think it's, if you have the health, and if you can still get the issues to deal with, doing that's a great idea. We did, my wife and I did this, have done this a couple of times. What we do, we plan a 10-day holiday trip, a 20-day holiday trip. But we'll spend 10 days helping a mission in the area where we're also having a holiday. We went to Costa Rica a couple of years ago, for example. 10 days seeing the country, 10 days helping a mission camp.
Wonderful.
Great way to do it. Great way to do
Let's say you're a retired mechanic, maybe a carpenter or electrician. How about using that skill set to honor God and to volunteer to help other needy families, perhaps, or maybe even Habitat for Humanity, building homes for needy moms, single moms or families, period.
Works very well. I have a friend, for example, who has a notice in the church. He's a mechanic. Single parents call me. He'll fix their vehicles because single parents often struggle with that. He'll fix their vehicles free.
Wow.
And something that he can do. I think it's a great idea. Get involved. I know the one church I was in, we had a whole bulletin board which simply said, job opportunities, needs. Put them together right in the church.
I know some seniors who love to get together for breakfast every morning. Monday through Friday, they get together at a fast food restaurant, they get together, and that's how they start their day. But then it turns into the middle of the day, sometimes the latter part of the day. They're there for 5-6 hours a day. And that may not be the best focus or the best use of their time. What do you think?
Well, I think communication at that age is a good thing. And I think starting the day that way, as long as they would then have a focus for the rest of the day as well, rather than doing only that for the whole day. But I think to get together with your friends is probably a good thing. It's a good way to start the day. It's a good way to get yourself out of bed. This is what I'm going to do. And I think a lot of seniors don't have that. And then they just lounge in bed, and they don't get out of bed, and they don't see the day. They don't have a focus for the day. You wonder really where they're at.
Many seniors as well that are couples, when one dies off, the husband or the wife, sometimes they're not invited out anymore to the other couples, with the other couples, for those breakfasts, for lunches, and they feel very alone.
They do. Very much so.
So how can we combat that? How can we change that mindset?
I think in our churches we've done a poor job of that. We really have. Singles are left alone very often if they've lost a spouse. I remember when I was traveling with the messengers that I'd be gone for 4.5, 5 weeks at a time. It was amazing. We had a lot of good friends. During that time, my wife wouldn't see them, and I couldn't understand it. That's when she needed them more than when I'm home. And I don't know why that is, Hal. Why do we tend to stay away from the singles when they need us the most? Absolutely. And I don't have an answer for that, but I think we really need to speak to that, because there are a lot of lonely people out there who have lost a spouse and don't have support. For me, I lost my first wife. I determined, having been a pastor, I'm not going to sit back and wait. And I think that's one thing that these singles can do. I started making phone calls. And you know what people said? Oh, now that we know you can talk about it freely, we'll come.
Right.
So there must be some kind of a built-in thing that gives them fear of trying to talk to that person who has lost a spouse. I'm not sure.
How about showing more love and respect towards our seniors? A lot of Asian cultures, they do that. They revere the elders. But I've noticed in North America, I've been on buses, I've been on subways, I've taken the trains. I'll get up if a senior comes on board, and I'll give up my seat, but many young people don't. They'll even have their backpack beside them, taking up another seat on a subway and a train, and the senior's there. I'm like, come on. So I'll talk to the other person. Move your backpack, please. This person needs to sit down. Why is there that lack of respect now here in North America that we see?
Isn't that our culture? I mean, look at our culture. Look at the sports scene. Look at everything. And what do we dedicate everything to? Youth. You have to be young. I mean, when you get to be 40, you're no good for hockey, you're no good for anything anymore. Well, good grief, 40 is only halfway down the road.
That's right.
But you're already out of the picture. And so even in our churches, I would like for our churches to appreciate the wisdom of the seniors. They don't need a position, but they've got a lot of wisdom, and I think if we could just dig into that.
Tap into that. Right?
Tap into that. Let's get the wisdom, let's get the experience from these seniors. They don't have to have a position in the church, but there's a lot of wisdom there that we could use. And I think in our culture, we're missing that.
That is good wisdom right there.
Yeah.
Retired Pastor Abe Block, thanks again for joining me in studio for Bridge City News.
You're welcome. A pleasure.
On behalf of all of us here at BCN, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless and have a great night.